Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pivot DFS, presented by FanDuel on the Believe Network. Spooky edition. Look at my little dancing skeleton down there. We're going to recap Week 8 for the NFL and talk about what we like in Week 9, part of the Old Man Squad Sports Network. I am your host, Keith Cork, and obviously a little out of sorts here. Happy Halloween, everybody. Hope you all had wonderful candy treats. Lots of Reese's Pumpkins for me, which is my absolute favorite. Of course, my stomach is disagreeing with me today about all of that. And but we will persist. We will power through and get to this. You guys are going to be a little bit angry with me this week because of what I ended up doing at the tail end of last week, right before lock, where we got some news that made me kind of pivot off of what I'd given you on the pod. But I will show you what I gave you was still possible. You could still succeed with it. Okay. So hopefully you won't be too angry with me, but I will go through and discuss, and hopefully this will help make you a better player as well, because sometimes you just have to go for it and make those swaps. Late swaps are a big part of DFS, so you should be paying attention to injury news and evaluating up, I would say the final at least 30 minutes before lock. You should be doing that, probably closer to an hour. Just kind of reevaluating, using whatever tools you have access to, using, whatever insights you have, following the news closely, following people on Twitter or whatever that are really smart and smarter than you, because that's what I do. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but one of the smart things I do is I do pay attention to what those people have to say. So, but we will talk about it. Let's talk about what happened in Week 8. Here are the top lineups from Spy. We had a Drake May at QB, J.K. Dobbins, Saquon Barkley, Roma Dunze, Jalen Waddle, Khalil Shakir, Dallas Goedert, James Cook, and the Miami Dolphins. Yeah, the Cook one hurts because I was so adamant about not playing him because I thought he was going to be pretty chalky. It looks like in the Spy he was 9.8% owned, so it was definitely wrong there. I didn't think he would be as low on as he was. He did, of course, smash against Carolina. Of course, I had just come off saying, we don't want to play against that Carolina defense, that run name. And it wasn't that he ran. I mean, he ran for 216 yards. So he did. He had a fantastic game. He had a couple of big ones. But, it's not like he was getting, 10 yards of carry or something like that. Just had a couple of big runs, able to find the end zone a couple of times. So absolutely smashed there. And, no, outside of that, I mean, I did think Roma Dunze was due for a bounce back. Didn't get in the end zone, but did have a nice game with 114 receiving yards. The Bears got a ton of yards and just couldn't punch the ball into the end zone, unfortunately, against the Ravens. They could have probably won that game had they done that earlier in the game. And then, the other guys here, I am kind of ticked off at myself also. I swapped out Khalil Shakir in the one lineup I had him in. And, of course, he ends up smashing, gets a receiving touchdown, 88 yards and 6 receptions. It is what it is. Otherwise, the rest of this lineup, nothing too exciting, nothing too crazy. Guys we talked about. I wasn't really on Drake May. He was only 1.3%. Going up against that Browns defense, a little scary. So, definitely took some cojones to get there. And it paid off. The screen pass is more in line with what I was thinking would be, the top lineup. So this was possible. Bo Nix, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, CeeDee Lamb, Troy Franklin, Jalen Noel, Kyle Pitts, Breece Hall, and the Jets defense. Outside of the Jets defense and Jalen Noel, I could have been on all of these guys, right? James Cook is the guy I decided to fade. It is what it is, but at least he was on my radar. I knew about him. I went with Marvin Mims in my Bo Nix stacks exclusively. And of course, he didn't do anything. He got 2 points, just about. You'll see in a minute here. But Troy Franklin was the guy. I knew one of those guys would pop, and unfortunately, I just chose the wrong one. That's happened to me at least twice now, so that's a little frustrating. But yeah, this would have been, I could have seen myself getting to this. So that's really encouraging. Unfortunately, I didn't get to it, but it was still a successful week for me, which we'll see. Here's a chalk from last week. Bijan Robinson was the top owned. Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, and Rachaad White. Bijan, man, never in my wildest dreams could I have guessed he would be that terrible. That was awful. So a little bit my bad, I guess, because he was my, one of my plays, but nobody in the world saw that coming. I mean, it was just terrible. I don't even know what the Falcons were doing. And you can't put it all at Kirk Cousins' feet because Bijan should be his value should be independent of whoever the QB is. He should be able to smash no problem against this Miami Dolphins defense, no matter who his QB is. And that just didn't happen. Rachaad White was a guy that I definitely faded, sniffed that one out. It was definitely right about that one, so that was good. The wide receiver chalk, we had Devonta Smith. After that, A.J. Brown news, of course, Jamar Chase, Darnell Mooney, this is the guy that killed me. Third most owned on the slate. I swapped everything to Darnell Mooney, which I'll talk more about later. But Cortland Sutton, Chris Olave, Emeka Egbuka, Tez Johnson after that big game, which come on, guys. Come on. We can't chase big games. Like if you've been playing DFS long enough, do not chase big games. Tez Johnson, fine talent. I have no problem with it. Could he have smashed here? Sure. 4.3K though. You had guys that were sub 4K that were pretty decent. Obviously Troy Franklin absolutely smashed it. So he's on this list also. Jalen Noel, Troy Franklin, and Rashid Shaheed round out the top owned plays. After that, there's a pretty precipitous drop off. And yeah, I mean, like I said, you had Troy Franklin at $4,200, $100 less, which I would have definitely played against the Dallas defense over Tez Johnson. That Tampa Bay game just reeked, right? I believe I spoke about it on the podcast. If I didn't, I definitely looked at it after in the days that followed, in the day that followed. But there was just a ton of money coming in on the Buccaneers, and the line wasn't budging. It was so fishy that I came off of all the Buccaneers. Didn't want to play the Buccaneers. And, it turned out to be a wise move. My guess was it was going to be a more defensive-oriented game, and that's totally what happened, right? I think the Buccaneers defense scored a touchdown in this one. I can't remember who else scored. It's been almost a week since it happened, but it was more of a defensive, game. And Baker Mayfield just crapped the bed, man. He did not play well. But the Buccaneers still win against a very inferior opponent in the Saints. Maybe just didn't feel like they had to put up a lot of points. I don't know. Again, the Jalen Noel thing, obviously no Nico Collins in that game, and no Christian Kirk. So I could see where people end up on it. He was not on my radar. Probably would have never played him. So it is what it is. He only got 11.3 points, so it wasn't like crazy, but yeah. All right, the QBs and tight ends that were most owned last week. Bo Nix was 23% owned, and then Kirk Cousins came in second at 11% owned. So there was quite a big drop there. So Bo Nix was definitely the most popular for sure. He was the guy I was on until I swapped off of him to Kirk Cousins. Just don't remind me. Jalen Hurts rounded out the top three and had a nice game as well. If you recall, I said I'm not going to do it because it feels like chasing. Turned out it was a fine call anyways. For the tight ends, but you might as well have played Bo Nix, who got almost the same score at $600 less. For the tight ends, we had Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, Cade Otton, and Kyle Pitts. Really nothing shocking there. Pretty sure I called all those guys except for Kyle Pitts. But the Pitts one was obvious when Drake London was ruled out. I mean, that was clearly going to be the guy that Kirk Cousins was going to throw the most to. And then Darnell Mooney was going to be the deep threat. I was expecting a lot more from his Falcons offense. Luckily, Kyle Pitts got a whole bunch of volume, which helped him pay off that 3.9K price tag pretty handily. So pretty good call there. The top performers from last week at the QB position, we had Drake May, CJ Stroud. It was a QB week, guys. Lots of QBs went off. So Drake May, CJ Stroud, Jalen Hurts, Bo Nix, Joe Flacco, Tua Tagovailoa, Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, Jackson Dart, Mac Jones. The one guy that stands out to me here that I was all over in the pod and I didn't end up rostering him at all was Tua Tagovailoa. And I swapped to the other side of this game. I swapped to, because I wanted to get Waddle, but I swapped to Kirk Cousins in the Atlanta offense, which got me off of Tua, which really ticks me off because he really smashed. That offense looked good last week. Of course, they played, at this point, I'm recording on Saturday morning. They've played the Thursday night game and looked absolutely awful. So, it's like night and day. It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde with this offense. But we got the good version in week 8. So that really paid off. Justin Fields is another guy I mentioned that could, smash, and he came on late, and that Jets game was a lot of fun. They came back and won that game. So good for Justin Fields. Hopefully buys him some more time as a starting QB there, because I do think he's better than Tyrod Taylor. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. That team's just a whole bunch of mess, honestly. But yeah, other than that, pretty straightforward, honestly. Stroud does jump out as a guy that I wasn't on at all. That did pop off, but that will change this week. We'll see. Top performers for the running back, wide receiver, and tight end position. Running back, it was Jonathan Taylor, of course, had a crazy game against the Titans defense. James Cook, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, Chase Brown, RJ Harvey. For wide receivers, Troy Franklin led all wide receivers in scoring with almost 27 DK points. Wow, okay. That happened. Michael Pittman, Roma Dunze, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and Khalil Shakir. And for the tight ends, we had Harold Fannin Jr., which was interesting. Nobody was on him. Dallas Goedert, Kyle Pitts, Mason Taylor had a nice one. George Kittle and David Njoku, which was also kind of interesting. Nobody had him either. Well, both the Cleveland tight ends popped off, and that team still lost by like 20 points. So interesting, right? Just interesting stuff. Yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy here except for the Troy Franklin thing. Sticks out for sure. I don't, would not have guessed he would have smashed that well. I was expecting Marvin Mims to maybe get me, 10 to 15 points. I would have been ecstatic with 27 points, of course. But that didn't happen. I went to Troy Franklin. So how about Jonathan Taylor, though? Absolutely has to win Offensive Player of the Year at this point. I mean, unless something crazy happens in the next, 6-7 weeks, Jonathan Taylor has to have that on lock. He's been absolutely crazy this season. Accuracy score, 8 out of the top 29 plays had double-digit ownership. That's only 27.6%. Outside of the RBs, I don't really think the chalk. I mean, and some of the chalk of the RBs didn't hit either. So, yeah, it was a tough week. Tight ends we were pretty spot on. But yeah, it was a pretty tough week. 33% last week, 38% the week before. This was the lowest week since week 4, which saw 24% of the top plays had double-digit ownership. And then week 3 saw 20%, or sorry, week 2 saw 20%. So, definitely one of the lowest weeks out of the top performers had pretty low ownership. So it was a good week for, GPP plays. If you wanted to, go out on a limb and make a stand, probably had a pretty good night. Not necessarily a good night for the chalk. 2 out of 3 of the top owned QBs hit 3x value compared to 2 out of 3 last week. 2 out of 4 of the top owned RBs hit 3x value compared to 3 out of 6 last week. 3 out of 10 of the top owned wide receivers hit value compared to 3 out of 7. Wide receivers were tough this week for sure. Probably the thing I struggled with the most of who do I get into my lineups. 2 out of 4 of the top owned tight ends hit 3x value compared to 3 out of 5 last week. 42.9% of the top 21 picks in terms of ownership had 3x value. And that's compared to 47.6% last week and 37.5% the week before. Pretty standard. Nothing too crazy. 3x value is not going to get you there for GPPs, but at least, we know that those guys are performing well enough that they're not going to sink us. That's kind of what that means there, right? So pretty decent week in those terms. A little bit lower than normal, looks like. But, yeah. We had super concentrated ownership at QB, so almost everyone was on Bo Nix, but I mean, didn't really matter what QB you were on because they all kind of smashed. Honestly, spending down at QB was probably the move this week, which is what I tried to do with Kirk Cousins, but didn't work out for me. So yeah, the flat QB scoring. And then we had value wide receivers that just absolutely went off. So you could spend up on all those stud running backs, which seemed to be what everyone was doing anyways. So there's nothing crazy there, but when you're trying to guess what value wide receivers are going to go off, I mean, of course, they're not getting that target volume. So, it's difficult to guess. You have to pick and choose, and you're going to be wrong more often than right because they just don't get a lot of targets. So that's what happened. My chalk calls. Lamar Jackson, no, ended up being injured. So I'm not going to count that as a loss or a win. It's just he got injured after the pod, so things changed. Jalen Hurts was. Baker Mayfield was not. That's because we had value open up, so people came off of Baker Mayfield. He's only 6.18% owned in the end. I do fully believe I would have probably had a better week, honestly, overall, had Lamar Jackson played, had Michael Penix played, because we would have less value out there, and the value smashed this week at QB. So, kind of burned me a little bit there, but But yeah, Baker Mayfield was not ultimately chalk. Jonathan Taylor was. Christian McCaffrey was not. He was 11.8% owned, but people are getting. I mean, you had so much cost savings you can get to Jonathan Taylor. Bijan Robinson was probably the top play across the board. It was 66% owned, so everyone had him. So yeah, Bijan Robinson was chalk. James Cook was not chalk, as I said, 9.8% owned. Rashad White, yes, was chalk. Derrick Henry was chalk. No surprises there. Jamar Chase was chalk. Emeka Egbuka, chalk. Devonta Smith, chalk. Chris Olave, chalk. Zay Flowers, no, because he got injured. What did I do? Come on. There we go. Zay Flowers, no, because he got injured. Okay. Or because Lamar Jackson didn't play. So since Lamar Jackson didn't play, people came off Zay Flowers. So I'm not going to count that as a loss either. Tyler Warren was not chalk. 6.3% owned. And again, I think that's because things shifted. I think he would have been chalk, but Kyle Pitts opened up. And I think it's really it. But either way, he was not chalk. He was 6.3% owned. Dallas Goedert was chalk. K. Dotton was chalk. Dalton Schultz was chalk. Tyler Warren became a pretty good play, honestly. But we'll see about this week. My top plays from last week. Bijan Robinson, 66.7% owned, just about 0.8x value, 6.8 fantasy points on 8.8K salary. Bad, not good. Derrick Henry did what he had to do. 30.91% owned, 3.2x value, 19.1 at 6K salary. Yeah, we'll take that all day. He was in the winning lineups. I mean, just an easy call there. Had a nice game against my Bears. It's very, very apparent that the Ravens were going to win this game because the NFL needs to have the Ravens in the mix. They just do. But also, I mean, they're getting healthier on defense. And, it just was an easy call. CeeDee Lamb, 9.06% owned. This was the guy I was on. He was in my title. You're going to be mad at me because in my main lineup, I came off of him. I'm sorry, guys. I still had decent shares of him. I think I had him in half my lineups. 1.9x value at 14.6 fantasy points, 7.8K. Not getting it done, right? Not getting it done for us. So bad call on my part. And then they played the Denver Broncos. I was hoping for more fireworks in that game. The first week that the Cowboys kind of came down to earth and didn't have a big week, you can say, okay, they're playing the Broncos, so that's why. I think there's multiple factors there. Not necessarily just that, but it just didn't work out in the end. Alec Ayomanor, 5.94% owned, 2.4x value, 9.2 points on 3.9K salary. Not bad. DK was the guy. They were trying to get involved more, though. Ended up being DK, the one that you wanted to own. So definitely a wrong call there as well. So my top plays aside Derrick Henry were not good this week. Straight and simple. But I still had a good week. I'll show you how. Key pivots. And this is how. Key pivots that I played. Bo Nix, 23.7% owned, 4.1x value, 24.78 fantasy points at 6K salary. Yep, we'll do that. Kirk Cousins, I did play 11.1% owned, 1.6x value, 7.12 fantasy points on 4.4K salary. No bueno. Saquon Barkley, though, 12.84% owned. He quickly became, if I could redo the pod after I swapped all my lineups around on Saturday, Saquon Barkley would have been the poster child of my podcast of the YouTube channel because he 12.84% owned, 4.8x value, 36.4 fantasy points, and 7.6K salary. Yes. Marvin Mims, 9.78% owned, 0.5x value, 1.8 fantasy points on 3.9K salary. Boom. Ugh, gross. George Kittle, pretty easy to call there. National Tight Ends Day, right? He had 7.56% owned, 3.2x value, 14.3 fantasy points on 4.5K salary. So not bad. Not great, but not bad. Definitely a fine play. The min cash line. So it was bye weeks, right? Bye Mageddon, whatever you want to call it. We had 6 teams on bye. So the min cash line did fall quite precipitously, quite a bit. 139.94 was the min cash line in the SPY compared to 163.06 fell by almost 30 points, about 25, 30 points, right? 25 points. 155.82 the week before, 176.8 the week before that. So definitely a very low scoring week for the main cash line, which worked out for me. As you'll see, screen pass 139.88 versus 166.64. So yeah, fell quite a bit. Lamar Jackson being ruled out definitely screwed with things. Shame on them for what they did with telling us that he was practicing in full, leading us to believe he was going to play. It felt like he was a lock. He was going to come back. And then suddenly Saturday morning, it's like, nope, Lamar Jackson's not playing. And we're going to go fudge the numbers and say, oh, actually, he was a limited participant in practice. So they got fined, I believe it was $100K for that little shenanigans. But that really screws up things like this, right? And that's why they got fined for that, because we're all trying to follow this stuff. And it's just misleading. I still wound up with the right QB, just not the right receiver. So yeah, Bo Nix, but I didn't pair him with Troy Franklin. My Atlanta Falcons swap actually saved me in the end because it allowed me to spend up for JT. So I swapped a lot to Darnell Mooney, as I told you guys. I had to do something with that salary. And so I went from Bijan up to Jonathan Taylor. Felt like, I'm getting value now. I'm taking shots on the Falcons. So I want to have a guy with a safe floor. As you guys remember from last week's pod, Bijan Robinson does not have the touchdown equity, right? Tyler Algier gets the touchdowns. As we saw this week, I mean, it was garbage time, but he got the touchdown this week, right? He doesn't get the goal line work. So Jonathan Taylor is always going to be a safer play than Bijan Robinson. If I have that cash to spend up on him, I will. From what I saw before when we were doing the pod, I did not have that cash to do that. So that's why Bijan Robinson was my top play, one of my top plays. But as cash opened up, as value opened up, JT became more successful. I could have done a better job telling you guys that beforehand. So that's on me. But something you just kind of got to know, something that makes you a better player, right, is thinking through these things and being able to understand that in real time. The RBs were insanely easy, except Bijan, who inexplicably stunk. Yep. 6 teams on bye, so concentrated ownership all around and lower pay lines. That wraps up week 8. Here's how I did. For my SPY contest, I ended up with Kirk Cousins at my QB. As I said, I swapped down from Bo Nix. I got Saquon Barkley. I got Derrick Henry. Chris Olave was in. He did totally fine. 14 DK points. Jalen Waddle, 5.7. He absolutely smashed 20.9 DK points. Darnell Mooney. But I did get Kyle Pitts. When I first swapped this lineup, I didn't have Kyle Pitts. I said, I got to get Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is the guy. This is the answer. I should have stuck just with that, but I wanted to get cute, and I put Darnell Mooney in there too. So bad on me. How'd that work out? Way to go, idiot. Jonathan Taylor was in my flex. And then the Bengals defense. Oof. -4 points from the Bengals defense. That was not good. But as you can see, I ended up more than main cashing. I ended up actually getting 185th out of 1,666 players. Pretty darn good. Almost top 10% there. And I mean, a big reason for that is Jonathan Taylor absolutely going off. Saquon Barkley absolutely going off. Jalen Waddle had a really good game. But swapping from my more expensive options, which was Bo Nix, I believe I had, I definitely had Marvin Mims in there. I think I had Dallas Goedert maybe as my tight end. I can't remember who my tight end was before I swapped, but either way, swapping to that value allowed me to go up to Jonathan Taylor, allowed me to go up to Saquon Barkley, and that's what carried me to the day. That's what carried me through to victory there. I did have one place in the screen pass, and this was more of a traditional. This was more along the lines of what I was trying to do. I had Bo Nix, I had Jonathan Taylor, I had Saquon Barkley, I had CeeDee Lamb, I had Marvin Mims, I had Darnell Mooney, I had Dallas Goedert, I had Alec Ayamanor, and I had the Bengals, which got me -4. but yeah, but that's that. Basically, those I think those are all the plays I gave you, right? CeeDee Lamb, I gave you Alec Ayamanor. I don't have Bijan in this one. That's the thing that's missing. I don't have Bijan. I went up to Jonathan Taylor because I swapped down to Darnell Mooney from gosh knows who it was. It might have been Jalen Waddle. I don't know. But either way, I saved some salary there. So I was able to go up to Jonathan Taylor. And I was able to go up from Derrick Henry, who was my other top play, to Saquon Barkley. So that was the story of it. That's how it happened. Week 8, I end up $85, which puts me at plus 170 overall, which means we are playing for free this week, my friends, but I am not taking it lightly. We are going for that gold. And we want to take down the big one, man. And I do think this is a my fun little skeleton there. If you're watching YouTube, there's my fun little skeleton. I do think that there's a lot of opportunity this week. I like this slate. I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't think we're going to have some major injury news, but you never know. This time of year, bombshells drop, man. You got to be able to react, just like I did with the Kirk Cousins swap. Again, that swap didn't work out for me, but it worked out for me in another way because it got me to other plays. So, I got a little lucky there. But we're looking for that big win, and we're gonna do it. I'll tell you what, we're gonna do it. Sorry, being a little silly. Let me get this DK slate up here. All right, there it is. Okay, I don't want to go. No, stop. I don't want to go to my contest. No, I don't want to do that. Actually, I do want to go to that. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing this time around. Don't look at this lineup, by the way, guys. If you guys like pausing the YouTube video or something and looking at this lineup I've got in right now, this is a dummy lineup. It's not the lineup I want to end up with. There's no point in doing that. Okay, so don't do it. If you think, I'm just going to play Keith's lineup, that's not what as you can see, if you're doing that, you've probably been checking the next week and seeing that's not what I'm playing ultimately. I toy with everything up until the last minute. So there you go. So yeah, I think there's some really, really interesting spots this week that people are going to be off of, and we're going to be on, and that really excites me. Lots of RB value this week. Just talked about slate in general. Lots of RB value this week, of course. Running backs are out. You've got Kareem Hunt in Kansas City. You've got Tyrone Tracy in New York. You've got Kyle Monangai in Chicago. So lots of running back value. So the clear pivot here is to spend up at running back, but that's not what I'm going to do. I don't think there's enough value there on this slate to warrant me having to do that. I'm going to do what everyone else is doing. I'm going to take the value RBs, and I'm going to spend up at wide receiver, at tight end, at QB, and try to get different in those ways. So, not going to get too crazy here. There is one game. Well, there's a couple of games I have some pretty interesting takes on, but we'll get there. Okay. So for the QBs, who's going to be chalk this week? Absolutely, Mr. Patrick Mahomes. Just a big time, matchup this week. You got the Chiefs against the Bills. AFC showdown, right? They are going to people are going to go crazy over this game. I think people are going to, jump on the James Cook bandwagon because he had a big week last week. People are going to jump on Kareem Hunt because he's got opportunity. People are going to jump on maybe Brashard Smith because he's also got opportunity. So the running backs are going to be good in this game, or they're not going to be good. They're going to be popular in this game. And then Patrick Mahomes will be popular as well. And then, you're going to pair him with someone like Rashee Rice or Travis Kelce. I don't think there's an issue with that. They don't really have a run game. I'd probably stay away from running backs in this game, honestly. But if you want to do Patrick Mahomes with one of those guys, I think that's fine. Not where I'm going, but I think it's decent. Caleb Williams is also going to be chalky because they're playing against the Bengals, who give up a lot of passing yards. Again, Caleb Williams had a lot of passing yards last week. He had 285 passing yards. The most he's had in the last 4 games. But they couldn't find the end zone, which was unfortunate. They had a couple of chances. Had a nice ball to Colston Loveland that got dropped. DeAndre Swift was a little bit banged up. And they've got Kyle Monangai, starting over DeAndre Swift this week. So I am definitely going to have a Bears stack this week for sure to see if that passing game can pop. So I have no issues at all with Caleb Williams. I think he's fine. The one I don't really understand, which, I mean, I understand where people are coming from, but it's not for me. I'm going to fade this. If I can find him. Oops. My brain today, guys, I swear. Here he is. Okay. Jackson Dart at 5,200. I guess the theory here, my thinking is, the theory here is the San Francisco, 49ers defense is beat up. They're missing some really key pieces. They haven't been really that good in a couple weeks. And the Giants have no run game. Tyrone Chasey, who we've seen before in this role, I think Devin Singletary is going to mix in more than people hope, which we'll talk about in a second here as well. Not very inspiring run game. So they think, okay, Jackson Dart has to throw. I mean, I get it. Still a rookie. Still a defense that has some pieces that are at least decent. This Giants team looks deflated, honestly. I'm not high in them in this game. Let's see what our spread looks like at the moment, because I know last I looked, it was pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy. So we got a lot of people pounding away at the 49ers, it looks like. Where the line started at minus 3.5, and now it's minus 2.5. With the 49ers, they've got some uncertainty too, though, where they've got Mac Jones and Brock Purdy. Either of them could play. We're not sure which one yet, right? So there's just a lot that's hard to read in this game. I personally, I'm not on the Giants. I think I don't have any interest in this game. Too many question marks. I think there's more. I mean, I'm doing single entries and small multi entries. You want to take some stabs on Jackson Dart in large fields, go for it. But for me, playing these limited entries, I'm just not going to do it. Not for me. For the running backs, the one thing we do know about in San Francisco is Christian McCaffrey is going to get tons of work. Crap the bed last week, absolutely terrible week for him. I guess a really solid Houston defense, so not too surprising. This Giants defense is a lot more accommodating, of course, so I have no problem, getting to him if you can. At 8.8K, as I said, I'm going to go with value running backs, though. I do think he might be the third flex option I end up on, though, because he is going to have to do a lot for this team. I am not sold on this passing game here in San Francisco, and it's a nice matchup. So, yeah, I have no problem with Christian McCaffrey. Kamani Vidal is 6.3K. He's the head honcho. He's the lead back. And a Jim Harbaugh offense against the Tennessee Titans that just gave up 3 touchdowns, right, to Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, smash spot. No problem there either. I think there's some, value running backs I'd rather get to. But I have no problem getting Kamani Vidal. If we find some, we want to just mash in a bunch of expensive wide receivers they're going to smash. Amon-Ra St. Brown's on the slate. Puka's on the slate. Jamar's on the slate, right? So I got no problem with that. Jaylen Warren at 5.5K is interesting. I think he will be chalk because this is a run funnel. What am I doing here? This is a run funnel defense, right? The Colts are a run funnel defense, so Jaylen Warren should get a bunch of work. Obviously, the Steelers do not have confidence in their passing game. They're out there trying to sign. Who did they just got somebody wide receiver that was Aaron Rodgers. Was it MVS? I think it was. Either way, they are not confident in this passing game, and neither am I. They should lean on Warren heavily here. It should be a pretty competitive game. This is one of the games I have circled as like an interesting game. So I do have a lot of interest in Jaylen Warren. So Tyrone Tracy, yeah, he's a fade. Fade for me. I think Singletary mixes in a lot more than people are thinking. Right? Tyrone Tracy had his chance to be the bell cow back. Didn't look great doing it. They didn't have a lot of success. They went to Cam Scatteraboo. He lost his Tyrone Tracy lost his job pretty easily, pretty handily, pretty quickly. And from there, Scadaboo broke his ankle, unfortunately. Poor that was disgusting. I hated watching that. So I think Singletary mixes in more. I'm not going to play Tyron Tracy. It's not going to happen. But we get no Ramondre Stevenson in New England. And so it's Trey Henderson time, baby. Travion Henderson time. 4 point. I can't get enough of this kid. At 4.9K. It is a tough matchup against this Atlanta defense for sure. So, I'm not like I'm pretty high on him still. People are going to be. Here's why I'm high on him, because other people will not be, because he has shown all season they don't want to do the bell comeback, right? That's the perception. The perception is they hate him. They don't want him to be the back. They're playing Tutu Gibson over him, playing Ramondre Stevenson over him, and I mean they could play Terrell Jennings over him. I don't see that happening. Right? I think it's going to be a 70-30 split. So I think he's going to get a full workload. Right? He's not getting 90% of the snaps or anything like that, but 70-30, at worst 60-40. And I think, he can definitely have a big game. I mean, he had 10 rushing attempts for 75 yards last week against Cleveland. No receptions, which is kind of crazy. It's really crazy. That can't happen again. He's got to get some receptions, right? He's got to be involved in the pass game, and I think he will be. I love Travion Henderson here. 4.9K is a really attractive salary, of course. So I love him. I think he's great. And of course, the other guy I love on my very own Chicago Bears is Common guy. He's shown a lot this season, and he's going to be chalk for sure. But he's shown a lot this season in terms of, being able to find the holes, get explosive, burst through them. I think they will definitely mix in Travis Homer as a third down back, a receiving back. I think he will get some work. This is another scenario where it's at least a 70-30 split, I think. This one could be even closer to 80-20. Because Travis Homer is not that guy. He's not the guy you want out there, running it up the middle, hitting holes in the middle of the line. It's just not. That's not his game. Okay, so that's Common guy. It's the Bengals. It's a fantastic matchup, of course. They're going to absolutely be able to smash this team, I would hope. Of course, the Bears have a terrible defense too, but I digress. Either way, Monangai is a fantastic play. And he's going to be chalk. I like him. In terms of wide receiver chalk, we're going to have Puka Nacua. Okay? Puka Nacua, who I love. I'm trying to get to more of him actively. Because if you'll see here on the slate, well, first of all, Puka Nacua's come back from injury, right? But it was a bye week last week. So he's had 2 weeks to heal up with what should have been a 1 week absence, right? So he should be well rested. Should be back to close to, if not 100%. But if you look at the wide receivers in the slate, you've got Puka Nacua at 8,500. You've got Jamar Chase at 8,400. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8,300. Just knowing how people think, they're going to naturally go to Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra because they save you $100, $200. So you get a little bit of an ownership subtraction there with Puka Nacua, who obviously has the exact same ceiling, maybe even higher against a Saints defense than a Chase or a Brown. I'm probably not playing Amon-Ra St. Brown, honestly. They're playing the Vikings, so it's a tough matchup. I'm not probably not. And there's a lot of weapons on the Detroit defense, or on the Detroit offense, I mean. So you can never really you can rely on him. He's always going to be a big part of it, but you can't rely on him for the ceiling as much as you can rely on. I mean, Chase is very clearly going to be a ceiling play against the Bears. And when it comes to Nacua, I think the ownership edge is there. So that's why I'm interested in him for sure. Jamar Chase, yeah, like I said, going to be a good play, going to be a chalk play. Gets the Bears, no issues at all. I'm on Ra. I'm not going there. Large field GPP, I get it. Not for me. Rashee Rice is 7.6K. That's because people want to play Patrick Mahomes. So far, he has definitely looked like the wide receiver one for the Chiefs. He's looked good doing it. But they also have a lot of weapons. They have Xavier Worthy. They have Hollywood Brown. They have Travis Kelce. Okay, they have no run game in this one, so they're going to probably end up throwing it. They could even get Tyquan Thornton mixed in. They could get Juju Smith-Schuster mixed in. They have a lot of weapons here. So it's a little risky. It's a little bit more risky, and he's 7.6K. Probably not a guy I want to wind up on a whole heck of a lot, but I don't see an issue with it. It's not like a bad play or anything like that. For me, it's just more. There's more risk involved with that play than, let's go take a look at the wide receivers around 7.6K. I mean, you got Devontae Adams, which has a higher ceiling probably than Rashee Rice, I would think. Ooh, I'm not going to, I'm not going to bet a lead. There's other guys I'd rather play than Rashee Rice. That's all I'm going to say. For the tight end position, who's going to be chalk? It's going to be Brock Bowers, which is really interesting because he's just coming back from injury. First time, healthy in over a month. But his salary is very attractive. I get it. His ceiling should absolutely outweigh that salary. He's only 5K. And he gets to go into the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is a very decent matchup. So I have no problem with that at all. I like that play. George Kittle at 4.8K. Going up against the Giants. I think people want to stack that Giants 49ers game. And if you do, Kittle's a decent option. That's fine. We don't even know who's under center yet for them yet. So I'm not super high on Kittle, honestly. I think he's always a fine play. Kind of a hit or miss play, though, because sometimes he does, as you saw a couple weeks ago, he's such a good blocker for McCaffrey. Sometimes that's really just his lead role, is just to be a blocker for McCaffrey, and he doesn't really get involved in the pass game as much. So 4.8K, yeah, that's a little bit too much risk for me, honestly. Theo Johnson should also be very popular because people do want to play Jackson Dart in this game. And it's not. I'm not super excited about it. They have other weapons they can throw too. Nothing exciting about that play. So, but it should be chalk. The pivots that I love on this slate. I love Kyren Williams. People will gravitate towards Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, maybe even Matthew Stafford. Kyren Williams gets almost no love, and people will probably be off of him because of the fumble, right? And he's had kind of saw his role reduced the last couple of weeks, right? Because he's had a little bit of a shaky ball security issues. Wasn't able to get in the end zone, some really key drives that they've had. So it feels like he's falling out of favor. I don't know, though, guys. I don't know if Blake Corum's really going to overtake him. I think so. I think the ownership edge is going to be there, and I think that the ceiling is just as good as anyone else in that range. So I do like Kyren Williams as a pivot. I think Kareem Hunt is going to come in under-owned than he should be. And that's really about the touchdown equity. He's more of a hit or miss, boom or bust type play. If you think that this Kansas City game is going to pop off, we saw at the goal line, Kareem Hunt is that man. Brashard Smith will get mixed in. Elijah Mitchell will probably get mixed in as well. I don't think Kareem Hunt's going to get more than, maybe 40% of the snaps, maybe. But he'll get the goal line carries. So if they get, a couple of goal line carries, he scores a couple at 4.7K, you really can't beat that. Okay. At wide receiver, I'm excited about some guys. I'm really excited about some guys at wide receiver. At wide receiver, I really. I know I just did this last week. I did the same thing. I'm doing the same thing twice in a row. Hopefully, I don't pivot off of it this time. There's not some major news. But I love Nico Collins against this Denver defense. Denver defense without Patrick Surtain. It just caps their ceiling, right? Still a good defense. No doubt about it. Still going to be one of the top defenses in the NFL. No doubt about it. But they don't have that top level corner that should just shadow the top receiver on the other team. And that's going to do well for Nico Collins. They get Christian Kirk back, which gives him another weapon. CJ Stroud just had a big game. This team is still trying to find its run game, right? They're increasing Woody Marks' workload here over Nick Chubb. It's still a very uninspiring run game. So they're going to still have to move the ball through the air a whole lot. I love Nico Collins. He's a forgotten guy, injured, hasn't played, really. I mean, he played in week 7, but he saw 10 targets. So I guess he got a full week load, but he didn't really do a whole heck of a lot. They had a bye in week 6. He was injured week 8. So been 3 weeks basically without Nico Collins. He's been in no one's lips, right? This is the kind of guys, kind of opportunity that we always want to attack, right? We did it with Derrick Henry, didn't work out. We did it with CeeDee Lamb, didn't work out. But one of these times, these top guys are going to work out and do well and have low ownership. Just like Saquon Barkley, he wasn't exactly. I mean, he's still double-digit ownership, but he was definitely less owned than the other running backs, and he absolutely popped off. For me, this week, Nico Collins is that guy. This is the guy. This is the pivot. This is the guy that no one's going to be on that I think is going to have a really, really good game. This Texan team is really, really up and down the roster appealing to me. Really interesting to me because, again, no one's going to be on them. And there's tons of bets on the Broncos who have played well. And the line shifted from plus 1.5 to minus 1.5. But, I'm sorry. It shifted to plus 1.5 from minus 1.5. So, we're getting encouraged to bet on the Broncos because there's no Surtain, because there's no Marvin Mims. Really? So they want us to bet on the Broncos now suddenly for those reasons? I don't know, guys. I think this Broncos offense might struggle this week. I can say very good Houston Texans defense, which will give us some more opportunities to score, which will give the Texans more red zone opportunities, which helps out Nico Collins. Nico Collins is the top target in the red zone for this team. Put in the books, man. I love me some Nico Collins this week. Absolutely. Another guy I love this week that's going to be lower owned than he should be, Roma Dunze. I actually like DJ Moore too, but I'm just going to go with Roma Dunze here because he is the clear wide receiver 1 in Chicago. Look, it's a great defense to attack. No DeAndre Swift. Kyle Monangai is back there. Maybe Monangai struggles. If I'm not playing Monangai, I'm going to play Odunze. I think you can stack them, though. You can stack Caleb Williams, Odunze, and Monangai, and just assume this Bears offense is finally going to wake up after like a month and a half long slumber, which is absolutely possible. I mean, Ben Johnson still is the head coach. This is a really attractive matchup, so I think you can stack those guys. But if you are going to fade Monangai and pivot to a guy like Roma Dunze, I think it makes a lot of sense as well. Troy Franklin. This feels like chasing for sure. And I just talked about how I'm not really excited about this Broncos team, but you cannot deny the fact. And if I want to, stack the Texans, maybe I want to play Woody Marks as well alongside my Nico Collins, CJ Stroud stack. I don't know. I want to bring it back with Troy Franklin because there is no Marvin Mims this week. You can go to Pat Bryant as well at 3,100 as a pivot, but he's definitely more risky. Just saw a big game from Troy Franklin. Is he going to overtake Cortland Sutton as the wide receiver 1? No, it's just not going to happen. But definitely the opportunity is there for him, and he just showcased the ceiling. And if he's got that kind of ceiling at 4.9K, I'm definitely in, right? Parker Washington on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just got news, what was it, 2 days ago, yesterday, that Travis Hunter is going to the IR. So we're going to get more De'Ami Brown. We're going to get more Parker Washington. Parker Washington is for sure the more attractive guy because he has seen his role grow steadily over the past, really just the last week. Saw 10 targets in week 7. Before that, he was only getting 2, 3, 4. He saw 11 targets also in week 3, though. So maybe it's a blip. Maybe De'Ami Brown is the guy you really want to be on. But for me, it is Parker Washington. That's the guy that's on everyone's lips. So that's the guy I'm going to go to. I'm going to go a little bit more safe in that region. The other guy is Jalen Coker on the Panthers. Waiting for this guy to wake up, man. This might be the week against this really tough Green Bay Packers defense. 3,600. Saw 4 targets last week. Double his targets from week 7. Getting healthy. I don't know. This could be the guy, right? He's a long distance threat. I think he's really interesting. Okay. At tight end, bit of a pivot that I like. I've only got one. Is actually on the other side of this game. It is Mr. Tucker Kraft, 5,700. He's the wide receiver 1 of the Packers. Just straight and simple. Last week, absolutely incredible week, of course. But gets a really, really great matchup here against the Panthers this week. So I think he can pop again. And, safe floor, really high ceiling. The price is definitely difficult, right? He is the most expensive tight end on the slate. But his ownership's going to be pretty low for that reason. So I'm seeing some opportunities where that's the case, where it's like Puka Nacua, Tucker Kraft, where these guys are, priced a little higher, and so they're not going to get the ownership, and so there is opportunity there, just in terms of ownership leverage. Okay, game stacks. Which games are people stacking? Which games do I want to stack? I think the most popular one to stack is going to be Chicago-Cincinnati. People are going to have Monangai everywhere. They're going to pop in, either Caleb Williams. Probably Caleb Williams. I think it's going to be all Caleb Williams. He's going to be the chalk. And then they're going to bring back Jamar Chase. Sure. No issues with that. I think it's fine. In terms of people just being all over that, it's not as attractive to me as some other ones. I would be more attracted to the other popular one that's going to be a popular stack, which is the later game, which is the Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. It's the last game on the slate, of course. Gives you some, late swap opportunities in case we have some major news pop up there. So it gives it a little bit of an edge. But also, should be a competitive game. You never can count this Chiefs, offense out. It's going to be rough without that run game, but I do think they can kind of patchwork it together with Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell, and Rashard Smith. I think they will get to a point where, it's going to be okay. Like, it's not going to be great, but it's going to be fine. And then, of course, their passing game is on the elite level. So I would be much more interested in stacking that game. And, I would stack the Chiefs side and then maybe bring back, because they're going to be probably playing from behind, I would think. I would think the Bills probably have the advantage here. And then, with the Bills, you can play, of course, any of the wide receivers. Keon Coleman's getting a lot of talk right now about just like his lack of production. So maybe he pops off in this one. You can absolutely go back to Khalil Shakir, of course. You can just pop in Josh Allen and then do a Kansas City stack on the way. You can do a naked Josh Allen if you want to. That'd be kind of interesting. Gabe Davis just got activated. He's 3,500. He's an interesting guy on this roster for sure. Just joined the team. So definitely some interesting names out there in that one for sure. That's one I would rather stack. But my top game to stack this week, and I just love it from the fact that I think it's going to be a really competitive game, is the Colts and the Steelers. Love me some Daniel Jones stacks. Love me some Tyler Warren. Think he's going to be pretty low owned. Well, actually, no. What did I say? He's going to be chalk, isn't he? No, I didn't have a choice. I think he's going to be pretty low owned compared to some of the other guys on here. I've had him chalk every week, so that's why I was like, wait a minute, I don't have him chalk this week. No, I don't. So Tyler Warren is really interesting for sure. Michael Pittman, of course, is interesting as well to pair with Daniel Jones. If you want to go Josh Downs, that's also an interesting name to pair with Daniel Jones. On the Pittsburgh side, of course, we've got DK Metcalf at just 5.5K. You've got Jonnu Smith at 3,400. We know how much he loves how much Aaron Rodgers loves his tight ends. You can go Freiermuth. You can even go Darnell Washington. Any of these tight ends is really on the menu. And, of course, I already talked to you about how Jalen Warren is really an interesting guy here as well. So, for me, I would do an Indianapolis stack. I'm not going to go Jonathan Taylor in this scenario. I'm going to go with the Indianapolis pass game for my stack. And Jonathan Taylor is almost 10K, so it's just really difficult to get there with all the value at running back on the slate. I just, he did have 3 touchdowns last week. It was the Titans. This is not the Titans. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not a great defense this season, but they're still a lot better than the Titans are. So I'm not going to go Jonathan Taylor. But I will go with their pass game and bring it back with Jalen Warren, probably. That's most likely what I'll end up doing in that game. But I love that game. I think there's a really interesting split here. Let me see. In terms of the amount of bets and what we're seeing with the line movement, we're seeing a whole ton of bets on the Colts, and they're getting steamed up. It started at plus 3.5, and now it's down to minus 3.5. But it's still a 3.5 point spread. Still it's basically a field goal. Still going to be a competitive game. I don't want to count the Steelers team out. I think it's going to be a really competitive game. So that's my favorite game to stack, my contrarian game to stack. Who are my top plays for the week? Let's get to that. And if you guys can't tell, I'm sick again. Don't have kids. Do not have kids. They'll get you sick 100% of the time. It's terrible. Who are my top plays of the game? First and foremost, I got to go with Kyle Monangai. Just think the opportunity is absolutely there. It's a fantastic matchup. I don't want to miss out on that value. Another value play at running back I just cannot get enough of. I want to see those explosive plays. They're going to happen this week. Travion Henderson. I'm here to tell you guys, Travion Henderson owners and season long, everything's going to be okay. After this week, all your worries are going to just fade away. Don't worry. He's going to be that guy. He's going to get most of the work. No competition. Don't be afraid. Put him in. Let's plug him in. Jamar Chase. We know what the floor is. The floor is absolutely fantastic. No other floor that matches. Again, I do want to try to get to Puka Nacua if I can. But Jamar Chase is super duper attractive. No doubt about it. Against this Bears defense, that's terrible. Nico Collins. This is my big call, my big stand of the week. I believe this is a big Nico Collins day. I think he needs it. I think the team needs it. I think this is going to be, this Denver defense is on its heels at this point. So I want me some Nico Collins in most of my lineups. Not all, but most. And then at tight end, I can't get me enough of Tyler Warren. Fantastic matchup here against the Steelers. Love this game. Love the game environment here. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think he finds the end zone pretty easily. Hopefully finds it a couple times. But yeah, that's my tight end I'm going with as well. So, what can we do from here? QB, I do want to try to get Stroud in there. So let's get some Stroud in there. If we want to bring back a Denver guy, I want to bring back a Troy Franklin probably. Right? For my defense, just find the cheapest one. I want to punt defense this week. All the defenses are way too expensive that I want to play. So, and I don't talk a lot about defense, but this week it seems pretty apparent to me, so I will mention it. So maybe we play somebody like the Titans against the Chargers. I could see them not going negative. Right? We could play some of these other, we could play this. We're not playing the Saints against the Rams. We're probably not playing. You know what? Fine. You know what? Let's play the Panthers against the Packers. Maybe the Packers are not all that, right? Josh Jacobs is banged up, all that good stuff. That leaves us 7,500 in salary for our flex, which we can get to Devontae Adams, we can get to James Cook, we can get to a lot of really interesting names here. So, yeah, Kyren Williams. Ooh, look at that, Kyren Williams. And then we can go up from our defense to someone like Falcons against maybe the Raiders. Yeah, the Raiders against the Jaguars. Boom. There you go. So you can make a really interesting lineup with all that. But those are my plays, guys. That's my week 9 plays of the week. Please do like and subscribe. Please do follow me on Twitter at DataDrivenOMS, at DataDrivenOMS. And, basketball has been kind of a slow start. I did end up doubling my money last night on basketball, so hopefully that continues and I can bring you guys some winning plays there. my lineup from last basketball one was absolutely terrible, so we'll hope to do better there. But until next time, guys, hey, go get that money.